Welcome to ancient Rome. The Romans are going to rule the greatest empire of the ancient world, and I'd like you to take a look at the map and just imagine how large and difficult it was to maintain this empire. Running all the way around the Mediterranean, of course, beginning right down here with the city-state of Rome, and then conquering, and this is a conquest state, a continuous band of land and running all the way up through England to the border, pretty much with present-day Scotland. The Romans in this vast territory are going to have great opportunities to encounter a diversity of people. What they're going to do with these conquered people is borrow from their good ideas. So they're going to borrow the best from the conquered civilizations that they pull into and assimilate. Because of that, the Romans are sometimes accused of not being original. I'm going to make the argument that they are, and that there are in fact two places where the Romans are incredibly unique and the Romans are very Roman. The first is going to be portraits, and the second is going to be architecture and engineering. Both of those will show us a side of the Roman personality that is particularly revealing and very important, and again, very, very Roman. At the top, I have some time divisions, and these are the divisions I would like you to think about when we're talking about the Roman world. The first one is the Republic, and for our purposes, we're going to be talking about the legendary founding of Rome beginning in 509 and continuing to 31 BCE, which is the date we're going to use for the first emperor, and that will, of course, be Augustus. This is a period of growth, of development. It is also a period when no single individual rules Rome. There is a Senate with councils who will be in charge, usually drawn from older males and respected males within the community. So we have a long period of growth and expansion that is known as the Republic. Then we move to the empire, which will be under the leadership of a single individual. The first will be Augustus, and we will follow some of those emperors individually through to the 4th century, when we're going to use the appearance of Constantine in the 4th century as the official end of the Roman Empire, and that will take place when Rome becomes a Christian state. We are going to be dividing the empire into two parts. The 1st century and the 2nd century essentially are the empire at its strongest. This does technically begin with Augustus, who will live well into the 1st century. Things will change by the time we hit the end of the 2nd century, but they're going to be visibly different when we go to the 3rd and the 4th centuries, and we're going to differentiate that time period and refer to it as the late empire. In the Republican period, the Romans are going to be focusing on a consolidation of power abroad, the taking of territory essentially to create the Empire of Rome, which they will do by warfare. Their characteristics in this period will focus on hard work, discipline, particularly military discipline and valor, and obedience to authority. The Romans also, by personality, are always going to remain practical, pragmatic, and hardworking. They're going to be problem solvers, and they're always going to take the practical solution. They're going to look for something that works the best possible way, rather than perhaps the most beautiful way. We're going to see that particularly in the portraits that are associated with the period of the Republic in the ancient Roman world. Roman portraits are completely unique. No one before the Romans created anything like these. You have figure 7-8 on the left part of our screen, and I've put in a couple additional examples so you can get a good look at these. They are characterized by a special word that describes the unique quality, the unique element of style that is typical of Roman pieces. And that word is verism. It does come from the Latin veris, which means truth. And what that implies is that these images, these veristic images, are conveyed to us with a blunt truth, an uncompromising, unflinching naturalism, so that the individuals are conveyed to us with all of their imperfections. And that in terms, let's look at the guy on the left for a minute. It's going to include the furrows in his brow, the very strong wrinkles around his mouth that accent his age and bring your eye downward. These figures often are going to have ears that protrude a little bit and clearly convey faces that are asymmetrical, which of course is truthful about everyone's face. Most of all, these faces do not belong to young people. In the Roman world, the contribution of the individual over a lifetime, which conveyed the idea of dedication to society and to the family, was important. So these images tend to be of individuals later in life, in old age, and sometimes these images are made, in fact, after someone dies. These depictions are brutally honest, and if we take a look at the two on the right, you're gonna, I think, see that. We have two individuals who are bald, their cheeks are sunken, and they too have bags under their eyes and wrinkles in their brow. All of this a testimony to age. We would probably never find anything like this coming out of the Greek world. The Greeks tend to look for the ideal, and the Romans give us a kind of hard-hitting honesty in their portrayals of the human face. These portraits then do two things. The first is, one, give us a veristic, a truthful depiction of the appearance of the individual. Two, they actually record Roman virtues, so that in an odd way these end up being types, because all of these faces and most of the veristic portraits are of males. All of these faces tend to be very serious. They look like figures have worked very hard in their lifetime. And you're going to hear the word gravitas, a Latin word, associated with these, which just means seriousness. No time for partying, folks. These are individuals who were hardworking, who were determined in their lifetime, who were virtuous, who persevered to work for their family and also for the state. You really get a sense that they're experienced and that they have given basically their entire life to create a better Rome. Probably also a better lineage, a better family line for the individuals closest to them. They also kind of look world-weary. By that I mean tired, old. It's definitely the opposite of the idealism that we find in the ancient Greek world. Instead, it is a record of the bluntness of reality. I do need to make a comment that because these convey virtues, which are so important to the Romans, and because those virtues are best illustrated in old faces, we may also have a little bit of exaggeration going on in perhaps some of the wrinkles in the face of the individual. And you'll pick that up in our Smart History video, which accompanies the course content. I would also like to suggest, however, that for a number of these, I really do think that they're pretty accurate or right on, because we suspect that some of them were created based upon death masks. And the way in which we can determine that is the face of a dead person would be molded, so the person would be laying down, and what we would get would be very sunken cheeks on basically the face of the corpse. From that mold-made image, then, a sculpted figure in marble could be created. These portraits were particularly important to the upper class, known as the patricians. And the reason for that is that the patricians used these images to stress who they were, their family. You can think of them as a coat of arms if you'd like to. It stressed their lineage, their genealogy, and what their ancestors contributed to the creation of Rome. The ancient Romans of the patrician class, in fact, actually kept images of their ancestors in the entrance area, the atriums of their houses. So if you went to visit a Roman friend, well, the first thing you would encounter would be images of the ancestors. Probably also a family tree on the wall, so that you're getting hit with who they are, who their ancestors were, and reminded of their station in society. The image that we have, figure 7-7 in our textbook, does depict a patrician man who is carrying two heads, as if to go in procession through the streets with them. One we think is his father, the other we expect would be his grandfather. Now, stone heads, marble heads, would not actually be carried because they're too heavy, so it probably would have been wax versions, which also were kept in the home. But those could have been processed, basically, during public rituals, to show the pride and connection you have with your ancestors.